Hi everybody, this is our recorded lesson for maths. This is Monday the 15th of June. This week our focus is going to be line graphs. And line graphs are a specific type of graph which displays information. And I'm going to show you a few examples now. Firstly, let me show you this one. So this, it says you are learning facts about dogs and each day you do a short test to see how good you are. And these are the results. So you can see here that there is a graph, a line graph to display the information. There's also a table which has the information in. Now we could just have this table to show that on day 1, 3 facts were correct, on day 2, 4 facts were, and then on day 3 that person got 12 facts correct, and then on day 4 there were 15 facts. But what a line graph does, it visually shows you a change over time. So a line graph is used when you have something to do with time. So these are, the time bit here is the number of days. And you'll see they're plotted down at the bottom. They're the number of days. And the facts are the things that change, and they change over time. So the things that change go up this axis. So this axis along the bottom is the x-axis. And this one is called the y-axis. So the x-axis are the things that stay the same, and they're the different time points. And the y-axis are the things that change, okay? So on this piece of information, day 1 is plotted as 3, and then day 2, then day 3, and day 4. And because we've drawn a line graph, we can see this information. And what we know is, pause the video and tell me what you think. What can you work out by looking at this line graph? Pause and have a think. Okay, basically, you should have said something like, the person learning the facts got a lot better at remembering them. By day 4, they were much, much better at remembering the facts than they were on day 1. Now, you can see from the line graph, the black line, there's also numbers above it, each one. We don't need to put the numbers above it because if we've got this axis right, you should be able to tell which is which. Now, the work I'm giving you today, there's lots of questions about line graphs, and there's one opportunity for you to draw a line graph, and I've provided squared paper. If you don't have a printer and you don't have squared paper, don't worry at all, because you can use lined paper and just use the lines going across to represent your axes. So it really is fine. It's more the shape of the line that's important. Okay, so we could then ask ourselves some questions about this graph. So firstly, we could say, if we covered up that table, for example, and we just had the line graph, we could say things like, how many facts were correct on day 3? And that would just be a case of looking across, and it's 12. But we could ask more complicated questions like, what's the difference in the number of facts learned from the first day to the final day? And that would be, the difference would be the 4th day and taking away the first day. So that would be 12. 15 take away 3 would be 12. And then another thing we can ask ourselves, which we already answered, was, what does this graph show you? And this graph shows you that over time, the person learning the facts gets better because the line goes up. Okay? Okay, I'm going to show you a different graph now. This graph is actually to do with the coronavirus, but this is about the transport that was used. So at the beginning, before lockdown, here, 100% of the transport was being used. This is in London. Actually, it's not, sorry, it's across the country in Great Britain. And what that shows you is all types of transport, and this was only up to the 28th of March, so we went into lockdown about here, 23rd of March. But before that, you can see that generally using different types of transport was going down and down, and then it suddenly fell really sharply down. Now this line graph has lots of lines on it, so the other thing you can do is you can use a line graph and plot more than one line, and they've changed their meaning by changing the colour, and it gives you a key up here about what each colour of the lines mean. So if we look at this green line, for example, this is people using the London Underground, the tube. Okay, and you can see that that fell the most, the sharpest. So that only about, I would say 10% of people were still using the Underground to travel on the 28th of March, compared to up here at the start of this graph, which is the 27th of February. So in 1 month, there's been a real drop in use. So this is what this graph could tell us. And if we had a bit more information, we'd be able to answer lots of questions about it. So this is a real life graph, and it shows people in a really visual way exactly what the information is. So you can see here that I'm going to just show you how to plot a line graph about temperature. There's something very similar for you to do today, but not about London. So across the top are the months. That's the information that doesn't change. They're the months of the year. And then down here is the temperature in each of these months recorded over the course of a year. Okay, and what we're going to do, they're the bits that change. Okay, so using this graph below, you can see, now what I really want you to use is when you're drawing the lines, the axes up the side, that you really need to use a ruler and a pencil. I'm only using a pen so that it stands out on this video and you can see it. So you can see already that I've plotted the months of the year along the bottom. Now there is a bit of a spare gap, but that's how I made it fit. Again, if you do that in pencil, so that if you go wrong, you can rub it out and start it again. So they're the months of the year. And if you notice, it's really important this is not like a bar graph. On a line graph, you have to plot the points for your line graph on the line. So the month has to be written on the line. So you see each letter is actually written over a line to help you remember, not in between like there. It was on the line. That's really important for a line graph. Okay, and then up the side, I'm going to plot the temperatures. Now, I know that I can, just by looking at my table, that the highest temperature is 21. So I'm either going to need 21 squares up here, or I'm going to have to do it in a different way. I'm going to do it in twos. So if this corner is 0, and then we're going to go on the line again, remember, so at the side of the line, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. We know we don't have any higher than that, but I'm just going to carry on. 24, 26. And this, I'm just going to turn it around and I'm going to write temperature. And then that's going to be in degrees C, because that's our unit of measure, and we always put a unit of measure in. Along here, I also need to write month. So now it's a case of looking at the table at the top and working out where each point is. Now, because we did even numbers down the side here, the ones where the information is an even number are really easy to plot, but some of them are odd numbers, and so we have to think really carefully about where that line goes. So for January, it's 7 degrees. So here's January. Now we've got 6 degrees here and 8 degrees here. So remember, we stick on this line and somewhere here we have to plot 7 degrees, and we know it's halfway between 6 and 8. So we just do a dot there. Don't draw any lines yet. And then February is 6 degrees. March is 10. April is 11. Again, that's an odd number, so it's halfway between 10 and 12. May is 14. June is 18. Sometimes it gets a bit hard to see where to go, so you can always use your ruler to help. So we've done June, now we're doing July. I know from the top that July is 20. So on July, I go up to 20. I know August is 21. That's an odd number again. So that fits in there. September is 16 degrees. October is 13 degrees. That's another odd one. So that goes in between 12 and 14. November is 8 degrees. And December is 4 degrees. I'll just tell you again, please do it in pencil. You can go over your line graph in pen, the actual line, when you're confident you've got all the points right. And then what you do is you simply join them up with a ruler and a pencil. If you don't have a ruler, then just something with a straight, like a hard straight edge to use. And then you plot the points just like this. Go from point to point, be really accurate, take your time. And you should start to see your line graph emerging. And because it's temperature, and because we know our summer months are June, July and August mainly, we would expect to find the highest temperatures in June, July and August. And this graph shows us exactly that. There it is. So there's our line graph that we've plotted. Temperature up the side, months along the bottom, and then we could answer questions about that graph, about why it looks like that. Have a think, what would the line look like? Ours looks like a mountain. What would the graph look like if you were living in Australia? We had the same months in the same order, the same sort of temperature scale, although it might have to be hotter. What would this graph look like if you were living in Australia? Have a think. Okay, that's it for our recorded lesson. I'd like you to look back over this if you need some help. The main things to remember is be accurate, use a pencil and a ruler, look carefully at the information at the top, decide really carefully on what you want the axes to look like, and then have a go at plotting your graphs. There are questions to answer too, think about it carefully.